you're onto this next chapter. So I have something to say. We've gotten some input from some people who have worked with you in the past, Mark, that I'm going to read too. So personally, I can say I've worked with Mark now for 10 years, and coming here, it's starting a new program, and I have found working with Mark to be like such a positive and great experience, and I would describe you as like a quiet, brilliant force back in the lab, like of strength. I can think of a couple examples, like, Mark, you always had a way of just making these beautiful embryos, even with tough cases. Like, I think the success stories and the thousands of babies you should really reflect upon as being an amazing accomplishment over the years. I think Mark had like a very quiet and nice way with patients. I always think of certain things, like you'd say, this is a B quality embryo, but it's going to be an A quality baby. Or you'd say, if you were my daughter, I would do ICSI. Your daughter went through a lot of hypothetical. I remember once, after a particularly difficult and stressful transfer, Mark showed me such kindness, and I will always be grateful for this. He came and found me afterwards and said, I want you to know if my daughter needed an embryo transfer, I would like you to do it in a minute. And it was just like a kindness and support that I really appreciated. I also want to recognize, shortly after Mark, again, he never complained. He was always a team player. One Memorial Day, I wanted to see my son ride in the police car in the parade, and this was a time when we had only 2 providers, and you came here at 6 a.m. on Memorial Day to thaw embryos so I could get out of here early. And, that's like being a real team player, and I appreciated that. So, like I said, I see you as having been this strong force in the lab, and your brilliance with lab techniques. I just think the patients in Wisconsin have been really fortunate to have you involved in their care. So thank you for everything.
Well, I very much appreciate those comments and remember actually most of those incidents. And you're definitely right about the teamwork, and I think it's just the nature of things now that we're more, and especially in the pandemic environment, we've been more and more kind of separated and secluded. You're in your own room. Even our meetings are Zoom, even though you're all in the same building, and so you to some extent lose a little bit of that the teamwork feeling. But I think we all still know it, that none of this would work without everyone being here, and particularly if we think back, which none of you can, but to the very beginning, it was literally 3 or 4 of us in a room, a nurse, a doctor, Linda, I think, and we, even at that point, we always said, it started, someone like Linda was as much a part of the team as anyone. The first contact the patient would have was on the phone or calling, and the receptionist answers, and even today, that when they walk in, well, there's still the phone, but the first face you see. So there's everyone here is a part of it, and it takes it does take every single one of us to make the whole thing work.
I have other comments to read, and this is from Dr. Gloria Halverson, who I think was with Mark for years. So she wrote, anyone that really understands the process of IVF knows that success is not based so much on the doctors who get the publicity and accolades, but by those in the laboratory who get those embryos to survive and grow. It was a privilege for me to work in this field of medicine with a lab being directed by Mark Rossler. Mark was a medical pioneer. When we started in the early 80s, so much of the science of embryology was brand new and developments happened quickly. There was no roadmap or formula. Mark, on his own initiative and study, figured out our basic program and then developed embryo freezing, intracytoplasmic sperm injection, growing embryos to blastocyst biopsy for PGD, and all the other nuances that made our program so successful. We had the first pregnancies in Wisconsin for most of these techniques. He was always up to the challenge. We were the third program in the country to try ovarian freezing for young cancer patients. I have great respect for Mark as a scientist, a technician, and especially an individual. He is a man of integrity. I wish him only the best as he transitions to this new phase of life. He has made a great impact on the lives of so many women, children, and families, and will forever have their appreciation as well as my thanks and respect. Very nice.
I was happy to have an opportunity to be in at the
Well, you
the
were a
beginning,
pioneer in
but-
Wisconsin, right? It's different if
Yes.
you're at a large center where everyone's doing it. It's different being like the only one in the state. So,
First of all, Dr. Strawn sends his best. He wanted me to read this email, but I think I'm just going to give this to you to read some
can you
night.
read any highlights?
Oh my gosh. I mean, really what Ethel talks about is kind of how he's, basically started this whole program with you and Amy out in Waukesha because Freighter wouldn't back what they thought was a loser. And then, of course, when it turned into a winner, they were more than happy to have them come back. But from there, grew into, what we have now. And, Estel is obviously Estel, and there's a lot of really great descriptions and memories in here. But I think the bottom line was that Estel really echoes a lot of what Kate said, what Gloria said, what many of us know, in that in your very quiet but determined way, you instilled confidence in not just the people you work with, but with the patients. They knew that, you were not a salesman. And they knew that if you were saying this is what I would do for my daughter or my family, that you meant it. So,
And I think they could trust you.
yes, absolutely. I do want to share one memory of Mark. So we had done a microtessie that I think it was Memorial Day weekend. I had been on call and was just getting slammed. It was a weekend where we probably had like 5 gunshot wounds just that involved urology in a 24-hour period. And at that time we were doing microtessie and cycle. And of course, when the egg retrieval fell on a Saturday morning. And so while I was running back and forth in the OR between gunshot wounds, I had this microtessie down at Freighter. We didn't find anything in the OR, but Mark took, and Amy, I apologize if you were involved in this or not.
I probably was not if it was a weekend.
I definitely remember Mark taking the tissue back, and then in typical Estel fashion, he had us out at La Fuente, and we were waiting for a table, and Mark called me and said, "I found sperm." And I know exactly, the couple was Joe and Karen Golly. And I still get cards from them every year, and hell, I ended up on the Brewers scoreboard because of that, because they had a beautiful baby girl, and it was.
I think at one point there was not enough sperm for eggs, right? I think,
Right.
But she got pregnant.
Yep. And it was. I think it made both of us a believer, but I'll never forget that day. I know exactly where I was standing when I got the phone call, because it was definitely not expected after we didn't find anything in the OR. But Mark, really, from a personal perspective, you have just been an amazing partner to work with. I think, like Kate said, what you have done for this community, for this state, it's amazing. And I think you should be very proud of everything that you've accomplished, because without you, we would not all be having the success that we have. So thank you.
Well, it is one thing about the last few weeks is I've had a little time to reflect, and it's been good to really look back and see how we got to where we are now, and it's been, as you say, it's rewarding, and probably the one thing I would say is, the trust of the patients, I think, has always been the main thing, that we have been able to let them know that we're there for them, and I think that's been especially rewarding. Sometimes things don't work out, and sometimes they do, but I tend to feel like most of the patients feel that they got the best possible care, so.
Amy, you want to say something?
I don't know. We worked together a long time. I just want to thank him for everything. He knows much. So.
Well, yeah, we've been through a lot, Amy and I, that is, personally, as well as, we've watched our kids grow and families change and all of those things, so more connection than I guess I would usually let on.
Yeah. My favorite memory of Mark is climbing the statue outside the Freedom Party in Montreal.
Oh.
That's my
Hoping that
favorite
wouldn't
thing.
Yeah. Boy, I wish I had pictures of that.
Somebody wanted the feather boa that was draped on the statue, and Mark was like, "I'll get it," and he crawled up the statue and got it, and that's my favorite memory.
Well, those were the days when they had martini fountains.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they were like.
But everything, I mean, I just can't thank him enough for everything.
And likewise, you have filled in all the gaps in my own background, and what is it, this thing I couldn't figure that out. and pager and everything on the computer and dealing with all of the.
I will
which
not miss
forms
Mark
go
asking,
where.
how do I attach this to this email? I've heard that 1,000 times.
Is anyone else, Jamie?
Yeah, I just wanted, oh, so sorry, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to share a memory I had of Mark, and I'm gonna start crying because Amy started it. And this is kind of just to show his integrity and what a good guy he is. We were out to an interview dinner at Eddie Martini's, and we were expecting snow. So me, I'm such a planner. I didn't have a scraper in my car, so we got out, and so I was just gonna sit in my car and let it melt before I drove home. And without a hesitation, Mark started scraping my windows. Oh no. So kind, didn't even ask. Just
I would have done that for a complete skin.
I think that's her point.
Yeah.
It's so on point for you.
Yeah. Didn't say a word, just started scraping my windows for me, and it was a memory I'll always have.
Well, now that you've mentioned all those things, I remember those things too. If you asked me for some memories, I probably wouldn't have recalled most of those things, but I do recall them all of those.
Well, they were just part of what you